Hello, everyone. Oliver G here. And if you're into home decor, if you're into antiquing, if you're into brocantes in Paris, you've come to the right place because I've got a brilliant guest to talk us through antiquing in France. It's Sharon Santoni. Now, I have a pretty strong feeling a lot of you already are familiar with Sharon. She's been doing My French Country Home since 2010. And in fact, I'd be very surprised if there isn't a big audience overlap between her stuff and the Eiffel Tower. Now, firstly, she was a great guest. We went and had a coffee afterwards. We had a really nice long chat. Just a lovely woman. I really enjoyed chatting with her. Secondly, her new book is called The Art of Antiquing in France. And you can get an edition. I think you can even get a signed edition via her website. All the links will be in the show notes below. I've got the book. I've got a signed edition of the book myself. And it's lovely. Really beautiful, really helpful, really informative. And if you like antiquing in France, this is for you. In fact, we talk about L'Isle-sur-le-Sorgue, the town in Provence where I've just bought a house. That book is sitting in pride of place in that town. So I was just down there myself. So what you're going to hear is us talking about, the concept is brocante. This is part of that alphabet season that I'm doing. A was for Arc de Triomphe. They opened it up for me privately. B is for brocante with Sharon Santoni, and B is for breaking it down. And also talking about B is for her book. And I think you're going to like it. I'll be back at the end just to talk about what's going on. And a big shout out to all the Eiffel Tower members, whether that's on Patreon or Substack, because your support keeps this going. Also, a big shout out to anyone who's thinking of or who has already booked a tour. Eiffel Tower walking tour. It's been lovely to meet a lot of you lately. I'm looking forward to meeting more of you over the rest of spring and summer. But for now, sit back, relax, wherever you are. We're going to take you antiquing in Paris and France, thanks to Sharon Santoni. Let's do it. Sharon Santoni, how you doing?
Good morning, Oliver. So pleased to be here.
It is a pleasure to sit across from you because, you've been doing what you've been doing for quite a while, huh?
Yes, indeed, quite a while. I've been, it's all started as a blog in 2010, and we're now 2026. So yeah, that feels like a long time.
Was that the golden age of blogging?
It felt like the golden age.
Yeah.
I really thought it was a really precious moment. I started this blog because as a mother of four with children growing quickly, I needed something new to keep myself busy. And an American girlfriend had sent me a link to her blog, and I didn't know what a blog was. And so I opened it and I discovered this amazing blogging world. And I thought, well, maybe I could give that a go. And it was I fell into a very female, feminine blogosphere. And I was really amazed by the talent there. People were writing, they were taking photos, they were painting, they were creating a very creative world, a very kind world. So I thought, well, maybe I could do this. And so I realized there was an interest in all things French country.
Yep.
I live in the French countryside. So I just came up with the name My French Country Home. And as they say, the rest is history.
So you started doing what you're doing now. You didn't have a pivot after a couple of years or something like that?
No, it's really grown organically.
Yeah.
Except that I had no idea where it was going to take me.
Right.
I had no idea. I had no idea if anybody was going to read me for a start.
Yeah.
I certainly didn't know that one day it would become a business. And also the wonderful thing is for people who are wondering about publishing online, the wonderful thing is that it really doesn't matter what you publish the first time because nobody knows you're there.
Yep.
So nobody's going to listen to it or read it.
I say that to people who want to start podcasts.
Yeah.
I'm like, just do it. Just start.
do it.
And no one's going to, when you start getting complaints about the audio quality or something, then you know there's listeners
people there.
that you can impress on the next episode.
Exactly. So no, it all grew organically. And what really thrills me is that I've got I have an audience and a community around My French Country Home. Many, many people have been with us from the start and they've seen the growth. It doesn't mean that they are all getting into our different aspects of the business, but they're all hanging in there and still interested in what we're doing, which is fantastic. It's a real privilege, actually.
Do you? So I've been doing this podcast since for 10 years this year.
Congratulations!
Well, thank you.
Happy birthday!
Yeah, true. Actually, I've got to figure out what I'm going to do. It's in December, but I know when the podcast started sort of taking off, and I knew the names of, I feel, the first 250 like fans. I feel like I knew all their names. I'd get an email and still some of those names are popping up listening. Do you have a similar thing where, if someone says, I've been reading since the beginning, you go, yeah, I recognize your name, I know.
Yes, we do. We do get to know the names. We get to know the names for very sort of down-to-earth reasons, because we handle all of the shipping for our boxes and our boutiques, so there are names that are recurring. And people write to us spontaneously as well, and share something they've enjoyed or something they're asking a question about. So there are some people who you actually build up a relationship. There are some people, thanks to our tours, that we get to meet. I've sometimes been on book signing tours in the States, and I've met quite a few more people there, which is wonderful. And then you've got the very discreet ones who are quietly in the background. Who don't necessarily leave any comments, who are just, and now and again you get an email saying, do you know what, I've never left a comment, but actually I've been here since the start. And as I said earlier, it's generally it's a very kind universe.
I can understand that, because I watch a lot of, YouTube or read a lot of things. The number of comments and letters to the editor and stuff that I send is very, very few. So I can understand. I mean, the majority of people out there are the silent type, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, the topic, we talked about blog, but B is not for blog. B is for, in an Australian accent, I'd say brocantes. How would you pronounce it?
Well, in French, you'd say brocante.
But what do people say it in English, though? What's the English equivalent?
Oh, gosh, I think I've heard all versions. Yeah. I've heard brocante.
Yeah. It sounds almost Spanish, right? Brocante. Brocante.
Well, anyway, it's brocante in English.
Yes, brocante.
In French,
in French, brocante.
It's
okay.
brocante.
But what is it? What does that mean?
So I'm often asked that question. The definitions that I've come up with is brocante are relaxed antiques. I like to think of the antique world as the world of highly polished furniture and higher prices and signatures on paintings and signatures on pieces of furniture even, or ceramics. And brocante is a mix of antiques with patina and repurposing as well. But whether you're going down the antiquing or the brocante road, and believe me, there's a lot of crossover area between them, two of them, what I love is that you're bringing character into a home. And there's a very also eco-friendly element to it, that in today's consumer world, the idea that a chair that was made 150 years ago can still be sat on and enjoyed just makes my heart sing.
Yeah. So as you're saying that, I'm thinking if other countries either have the same thing or do it the same way, or is this a very French thing?
I think the style here is very specific. I'm British originally, and I sometimes hunt in England, but it's a very different style. I've looked for antiques in Italy as well, very different style. So I think each country, it's logical. Each country has a style that reflects its culture and its history and its artistry. I think French antiques is possibly the most popular style at the moment. Witness the quantity of antiques that cross the Atlantic, particularly to the USA, but actually all around the world.
But so do you mean that because, for example, the US is quite a young country compared to France, that they couldn't have that same culture around their old stuff because it's not anywhere near as old? Is that what you mean?
Well, no, because typically the antiques that we've just had the wonderful big Foire de Chateau, the big Chateau antique fair just outside of Paris. I went there several times during the 10 days of the fair. I went with friends. I went with clients as well. Typically, the items that are being bought are 18th and 19th century.
Okay.
So that would be possible in the States. I just think it's a mindset. I think in France we do like to repurpose, reuse. We do put a value on on craftsmanship and something that's been loved for a generation. How wonderful if it can be loved by 2 or 3 more generations to come.
So how does it usually happen if it's been in a couple of generations in a family? What typically prompts someone to sell? And is it just a question of money, do you think?
I think it's often a question of money, absolutely. Today, all over France, there are the most amazing properties, chateaux and manor houses that are being passed down from one generation, and it's kind of a poison chalice, really, to inherit a large property. Just for the maintenance, replacing a roof is hundreds of thousands of euros. And so sadly, there are many, many properties which are being completely closed up and emptied as they go. And so that furniture often ends up typically somebody who was emptying a family manor house that they were no longer able to keep. Typically, they would call in a local auction house or a local antique dealer who would come in and say, yes, well, that piece interests me. Those paintings are quite wonderful. Not so keen on your aunt's orange plastic side table, but the rest, yes, absolutely would be of interest. And little by little, that sort of filters through the market.
Interesting. So it's not so much, because I can imagine an antique or a seller just rubbing their hands with glee when one of those happens.
It's a lot of work, but yes.
I imagine, yeah.
It's a lot of work.
But you never know what's going to be in there as well.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
I think you don't live in Paris. You're in Normandy.
In Normandy.
Can we say where you are?
I'm in the Vallée de l'Eure. I'm half. If you look at a map, I'm sort of halfway between Paris and Deauville.
So, you need Giverny, right?
That's right. I'm not far from Giverny.
It's lovely around there.
It is.
I went there on my honeymoon.
Oh, to Giverny.
Well, I stopped through. No, not Giverny. Just somewhere in Eure, actually. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't even remember we did a big trip around France.
Nice.
So technically, we went everywhere.
Nice.
But I remember being there. I remember thinking it was so lovely.
Well, it is lovely. It is countryside. Because Paris is a wonderful, wonderful city, but is actually not enormous compared, for example, to London, for example. You can leave Paris and within an hour really be in a tiny village. There are 300 people in our village.
Wow.
And so I really revel in the contrast between living in the country but popping into Paris for lunch if I want to.
What's it like in a village with 300 people? Is it
quiet?
It's
quiet.
Do you kind of know everybody?
We know a lot of people. Our children didn't go to school in the actual village.
Right.
They went in a close-by towns, as often through schools that you make friends. We do know quite a few people. We know all our neighbours. We hear our neighbours' chickens in the morning. You grow up with a different skill set when you grow up in the countryside. If you're lucky, you have your own ponies and you have a dog in the yard, and you think it's normal to jump on your bike and cycle to the next village to go and see your friend for the afternoon. There's a certain liberty, I think, for a child growing up in the countryside that they might not have in the.
I heard children in the countryside have better balance as well. Have you heard that before?
No, I don't.
Children in the city who are always walking on paved roads aren't used to...
I see. Literally balance.
Yeah, literally. No,
I didn't know that.
I heard that children are on uneven surfaces and grass.
I thought you meant the psychological balance.
Oh, we're not going to get into that in a 30-minute podcast.
No, exactly.
But so I bring up Paris because obviously most people who visit this country will come to Paris.
Yeah.
And their version of brocante and antiquing and everything is very Paris-based. And I'm intrigued to hear the comparison of the big city versus the rest of the country.
So, first of all, in Paris, you've got the Puces de Saint-Ouen right up on the northern perimeter of Paris. You're literally standing beside the Périphérique boulevard around Paris. Not the most glamorous area of Paris by any means, but the market of Saint-Ouen is a unique place in the world. I always say, whatever it is you need, I promise you it's there somewhere.
Yeah.
You could go to the Puces de Saint-Ouen and you couldn't see the whole thing in a weekend if you tried. You'd have to come back several times. It's really enormous. And there's not only a lot of really fantastic antique items there, there's so much knowledge there. The dealers really know their stuff. They can be passionate about whether they're specialized in paintings or furniture or textiles. And so the Puces de Saint-Ouen is divided into several different markets, each with its own particular vibe. So that is pretty extraordinary, and that is not replaced anywhere else in France. Although I would say, coming close runner is your soon-to-be hometown of Ile-sur-la-Sorgue.
Ile-sur-la-Sorgue.
Absolutely, which is, I think there are over 500 vendors there.
Something like that.
Only open at the weekend, like the Puces de Saint-Ouen,
Right.
only open at the weekend. And that is... that's a slightly different vibe, but there's also some really wonderful dealers there. And of course, at the weekend, you've got the Brocante fair on the street.
Yeah.
It's sort of more relaxed.
So have you spent much time down there?
Yes. No, I've lived in Provence, and I'm down there every summer, and I go down south probably 4 or 5 times a year.
Oh, we might cross paths down there.
With pleasure.
So in Ile-sur-la-Sorgue, for example, then the antique is the shops that are open on the weekend that are selling the typically more expensive stuff.
The other side of the river.
Yeah.
From the old town.
Yeah.
So in the old town, you've got that fantastic old church whose name just escapes me.
Escapes me too. I'm not a local.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, but I know
so
the inside is insane.
It's beautiful. On that lovely square with the cafes, and it's beautiful.
And the plane tree is so big.
Yeah.
I asked the ice cream seller there, I was like, are you guys not worried that these are going to fall in on you? Because they're enormous. I mean, me and you together couldn't put our arms around one of those tree trunks.
Well, they're probably several hundred years old.
He said, come and look at this. And one of them, over the years, is split open in the middle, and they filled it with concrete.
Oh. Okay.
So he's like, that's not going anywhere. I was like, okay, well, fair enough. But so the brocante style is more...
So we've spoken about the two big things, so Saint-Ouen in Paris and Ile-sur-la-Sorgue in the south of France. But don't forget that traditionally there are brocante fairs that spring up all over France on a Sunday morning. This is how I really first discovered the world of brocante when we moved out to Normandy 28 years ago. And I suddenly discovered the world of the foire à tout, which sadly today they're not as good as they used to be because the attics have now been emptied pretty much.
Yeah.
But they were wonderful. And having been a fully hands-on mum all week, the Sunday morning while everybody else was still asleep, I would creep out of bed and creep out of the house and go to several different fairs and come back, the car completely full. And it was so much fun.
So foire à tout is in like... fair for everything, is that what it means?
Yeah, foire à tout means a fair for everything. I think in English, we'd say a boot fair.
What's a vide-grenier then?
So it's much the same thing.
Right.
Yeah, it's much the same thing.
Like
Vide-grenier means empty the attic.
Yeah.
Yes, it's much the same thing. And so those in France, they are often just local people, not professional sellers, who just literally bring out what they want to get rid of. And it used to be really good, but now it's less interesting now. It's more sort of toys and clothes, which is not as interesting. So you've got those, and there's a great site called Brocantes, which is a really good place to know wherever you are in France what fairs are going to be on that weekend. And then you've got dotted around Paris and the rest of France, you've got regular smaller fairs, which are really excellent. In Paris, you've got the Pot de Vent on the weekend in the morning.
I love that one.
I love that too.
Yeah, it's got a different... authentic's a weird word to use, but there's a vibe there that feels very real. Yeah.
And there's an urgency because they all unpack from their cars directly at about 8:30. It doesn't start very early, but they finish by 12:30. So there's sort of urgency to it. I always admire their patience. In the south of France, Villeneuve-les-Avignon is a wonderful fair. Carpentras is a fantastic fair. And up in the north of France, there's a really, truly spectacular. There's Lille, which is big, but it's almost sort of so big it's scary because it's other stuff as well. It's not just antiques. But in the north of France, you've got Amiens, Amiens, which is wonderful.
Is that where Macron's from?
Oh, he could be.
It rings a bell.
Yes, it could be. And where the vendors come the day before with their trucks, and really they start selling as from midnight.
Really?
So you can shop from midnight until the end of the day, sort of 7 o'clock in the evening.
It's funny because there's...
Have to be very well organized for that.
Well, I'm not organized, so I got no chance. But but it's funny that I think when I think of words like antiquing, I think of a sort of more slower paced. But when you talk like this, there is an urgency to a lot of it that adds a sort of almost like the shot clock in a basketball game, that things have got to get done as well.
Well, I'm very competitive as well.
You've got to be competitive as well?
Well,
So
yes.
what about the people listening who are from different countries and might feel intimidated by going into a market and potentially discussing with a vendor or trying to negotiate a price? Is there anything you can say to sort of quell people's concerns?
Yes, well, first of all, enjoy the moment, really enjoy the moment. Never be shy to ask about an item. Well, I'm talking with professional vendors, but even with individual people who are selling, never be shy about asking for more information. If you don't speak French and if they don't speak your language, then either use a bit of pencil and paper or even Google Translate. Why not? Don't be shy about negotiating prices. The worst they can say is no. The golden rule is if you see something that you like, it's always risky to say, oh, I'll think about it and come back later. Believe me, I still got memories that still hurt today from that. So if you're standing and you're looking at something, the sort of golden rule is if your hand is on it, you've got first dibs while you're thinking about it. If you take your hand off and take a step away, then somebody else can jump in. But I would say enjoy the moment. If you've got, it's good to have a few photos of maybe your home in your phone, maybe a few measurements.
Right.
Just try to sort of visualize where that painting that you're looking so longingly at would fit.
Yeah.
If I recently bought a lovely painting at the Porte de Vanves, actually, which I really like, and I was hesitating about it. And then I saw it was signed and was able to look up there and then the name of the artist. And I'm not saying it wasn't a hugely expensive. But it wasn't to add the value. It was just to sort of inform me a bit more. You know, knowledge is power. And I read a little bit about her, this female artist, and what I read made me like the painting even more. And so I bought it. So yes, just try and, but follow your heart. Don't buy something because you've read somewhere on Instagram that it's the right thing to have at the moment. Buy something that really speaks to you.
Well, it sounds like in your new book, The Art of Antiquing in France, the opening story about going out there with plans to get furniture, coming back with a painting.
Absolutely. It's just a question of priorities.
Yeah.
That's right. My husband and I, we were in our first apartment in Paris. We had lived in the south and we got to this apartment in Paris and it was very, very bare and we didn't have that much money. And so we had a mattress on the floor.
Yeah.
And luckily a fitted kitchen, but really not much else. It was very romantic, very cute. And there was a big brocante fair announced for a weekend, so we counted up our francs at the time, not our euros, and decided that we would try and get 2 chairs and a table and maybe somewhere an armchair as well. And went off to the fair, had the most wonderful time, and came back proudly with a painting. And still no table or chairs. And that painting has accompanied us all around the world ever since, actually.
You said that there's that you should go with your heart and so on, but this is a 2-part question. Are there things that are always a safe bet that, not necessarily just hot right now, but things that you can't go wrong with an X? That's part 1.
Well, if you're talking about furniture, then there are sort of basics like, does this chair wobble or does this table wobble? If it wobbles, why? Can it be fixed? Because you don't want to go home and find that the table you just bought is actually full of woodworm and will not last at all. And also, depending on where you're shipping to, if anybody's shipping to Australia, for example, woodworm will simply not be allowed in.
They don't let anything in Australia.
They will not be allowed in. Not only will it be refused, but you'll be charged for the destruction.
Yeah.
So that's a really bad idea. So no, I do think wasn't it William Morris who said, "I have only in your home what you find beautiful or useful." And I do think you have to sort of go with that. Really, what's the point of buying something because it's meant to be a safe bet if you don't want to use it afterwards?
Yeah.
So. I've kind of forgotten your original
That's
question.
okay, because it was a part 1. The part 2 was funny that you bring up shipping, because I presume a lot of people who listen to my show, and even a lot of people who follow you, are abroad and coming here and maybe are put off by the markets because they don't know how to get things home.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's something you recommend that slips in a suitcase.
Oh yes, lots of. Well, obviously, I buy loads of paintings, so paintings quite easily slip in a suitcase. Always bring a spare suitcase with you, or buy a cheap suitcase here and put stuff in. It's the most economical and quickest way to get your stuff back with you. If you fall in love with a huge armoire or a big farm table, obviously that's not going to work. And in that case, you'd have to get in touch with a shipper. For example, there's one who's based in the flea markets called Edet, EDET, who are excellent. They do a really great job. They'll give you a quote and they will handle the rest. But it's not cheap to ship. Shipping is expensive, and actually more and more expensive. And then also, don't forget, you might have charges when it finally arrives. But stuff that slips into your suitcase, yes, totally. I travel with people who ship their treasure home, who bring their treasure home in their suitcase and ship home their dirty laundry.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
that's a good idea. When I was last in the Provence market, I bought an Edith Piaf vinyl.
Oh yeah.
I don't even have something to play vinyl, but I just liked it. And I bought for my wife who paints. I don't even know what the word is, but the thing that you dab your paint on.
The palette.
The palette, of course. Both easy to carry, I figured.
Perfect.
And I love the old postcards.
Oh, yes.
I love the old postcards.
Yes, but what do you do with an old postcard? You frame them?
You know what I thought about doing? Well, I'll give this idea to the universe. I thought about finding ones from the places I do my walking tours.
Oh, sweet.
And then at the end, giving a little...
Oh, that's really cute.
Giving them to people.
Yeah, they can be found.
Yeah, they're around, but it means I've got to go and find lots of postcards from the Marais and Montmartre and so on. And,
yes.
And it's just, I just haven't done it yet. So that's why I'm giving the idea to someone else.
Is there somebody at Provence who sells postcards? I can't remember. I think there is sometimes. Maybe right down at the end on that sort of triangle bit. Right, do you
know them by name out there when you go there? You're like, hey,
couple,
Fred. Yeah.
No, a couple.
Yeah.
A couple.
Yeah.
I don't go often enough to Provence to know them. Yes, no, I do know a couple. I know more at Ile-sur-la-Sorgue and Saint-Ouen.
Okay, let's. Time's running away, as it often does. Also, bring a suitcase to Paris or France so you can fit a copy of the Art of Antiquing.
Absolutely.
Or My French Country Home magazine.
Thank you.
But let's talk about the book for a second. This is how did you explain it to me just before? That it's a book that you dip in and out of. I think so Flammarion, the French publisher, asked me to create this book. It's written around 10 chapters because there's a lot of information. So that seemed like the best way to present the information. So there's a chapter on painting, silverware, textiles, furniture, architectural elements. And we give a little bit of history. We give a little bit of clues on what to buy, what to avoid, and also for care and maintenance. And then also we include the profile of a dealer who I particularly appreciate, who's specialized in that area. And at the end of the book, we've got lots of information on fairs and on antique dealers all around France. And yes. Not to mention stunning photos throughout. The photos are lovely. Really beautiful. Yes. This is a coffee table book. It is a mix between a reference book and a coffee table book. I think we all love beautiful photos. It's something in our magazine, which is our absolute priority, is working with great photographers. And I think the power of a picture is not to be underestimated. So yes, we worked with Joanna McLennan and Frank Schmidt, who are two photographers who I know very well, who often work with us on the magazine. And they took a lot of photos for us, and then I also took some. So there's a sort of three-person game. Three-pronged attack. Three-pronged attack, exactly. This book, thank you for my copy with the signature in the front. This is going to go on the coffee table of our house in the antique Mecca of France, where it will take pride of place. But for everyone listening, find the book, The Art of Antiquing in France. It'll be linked in the show notes. My French Country Home is a whole world to discover if you haven't already. And I'll be linking below on how you can find Sharon and her various channels on social media. But Sharon, thanks for enlightening me. Thank you so much, Oliver, for inviting me. The pleasure was mine. So there you have it. Once again, Sharon Santoni. She has been doing this since 2010. She knows exactly what she's doing. The book is called The Art of Antiquing in France. flea markets, brocantes, and antique shops. Otherwise, check out her website, myfrenchcountryhome.com, where you can get everything from advice on what to do in France, magazines, of course. I think a lot of you know the magazines already, and plenty more in their boutique. Check them out. It's all linked in the show notes. Later on this week, you'll hear a re-release of another episode that I did a few years ago. B is for Bièvre River. As I've said before, I'm going to be re-releasing these old ones in the same week because some of them are just great, and it feels a shame that they'd languish in the back pages of podcast history. So you'll get that on Friday. Before next week, we'll get into the 18th arrondissement, talking about life in the 18th Kingdom. Until then, my name's Oliver G. Thanks for listening. This is the Eiffel Tower, and au revoir.
Thank you.